There is a voice in your head right now. You just heard it. It might have just said, "What voice?" And that was it. It has been there every single day of your life. It rehearses conversations before you have them. It replays conversations after they're over. It narrates. It worries. It judges. And it is so constant, so close, so completely inseparable from your experience of being yourself that you have probably never stopped to ask the most obvious question about it. Whose voice is that? Because here is what neuroscience has spent decades quietly building a case for. That voice is not simply you thinking. It has its own agenda, its own timing, its own relationship to truth that has nothing to do with what you actually believe. And the part of you that seems to be listening to it may be just as constructed as the voice itself. Stay with me, because in a few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly where that voice came from. And when you find out, you will never hear it the same way again. In 2011, a psychologist named Russell Hurlburt at the University of Nevada published research that shattered one of the most basic assumptions people have about their own minds. He spent decades developing a method called descriptive experience sampling. Participants wore an earpiece that beeped randomly throughout their day. At each beep, they had to stop, not summarize what they'd been thinking about, but capture the exact contents of their awareness at that precise moment. What he found demolished everything. Most people believe they have a constant inner monologue, a running stream of verbal thought from the moment they wake up to the moment they fall asleep. But when people were actually stopped mid-experience and asked what was literally there, only about 20 to 25% of inner experience turned out to be verbal at all. The continuous inner monologue you think you've had your entire life is largely a myth, not a report of your inner life, a story about it. But here's where it gets genuinely strange, because for the people who do have high rates of inner speech, the research on what that voice is actually doing reveals something nobody expected. And this is the part that changes everything. We'll get there in a moment. First, the voice is not reporting your thoughts. It is generating them. Psychologist Alain Morin has studied inner speech for decades, and his work suggests that the inner voice is not a transmission of what you already think. In many cases, the act of internally articulating something is what makes it a thought at all. The voice doesn't report who you are. It constructs who you are by speaking it into existence inside your own head. And once you understand that, everything about the voice starts making a different kind of sense. You have experienced this. The voice that says you're not good enough. The voice that catastrophizes. The voice that replays an embarrassing moment from 7 years ago at 2 a.m. for absolutely no reason. You know consciously that you are good enough. You know the catastrophe is unlikely. You know that embarrassing moment is long over and largely forgotten by everyone else. But the voice says it anyway, because the voice is not a transmission of your beliefs. It is a semi-autonomous process, running its own patterns, generating its own content, and delivering it to you in the first person, as if it were your own thinking. Now here is the neuroscience that proves it, and what it reveals about where the voice actually comes from is something most people are not prepared to hear. Neuroscientist Charles Fernyhough at Durham University mapped what actually happens in the brain during inner speech. When you hear the voice in your head, your brain is simultaneously producing the voice and hearing it. You are the speaker and the audience at the same time. The inner voice is not a single unified self expressing itself. It is a conversation between different neural systems happening inside your head without your permission. And now, here's the part that is going to sit with you long after this video ends. Fernyhough's work draws on research showing that inner speech doesn't originate inside you. It begins outside you. It starts as speech directed at you from other people: parents, teachers, caregivers, instructions, labels, judgments, narratives that get gradually internalized, taken in, made private, until they become the voice you experience as your own. The voice in your head began as someone else's voice, and at some point you forgot that and started treating it as the sound of your own thinking. Think about what that actually means for your life right now. The inner critic that tells you your work isn't good enough. Where did that come from? The anxious narrator that always imagines the worst. Whose voice does that actually sound like? The perfectionist that moves the goalposts every time you get close. Was that ever actually yours? These are not insights. They are habits. Neural patterns laid down by repetition, activated automatically, delivered in the first person, as if they are the unmediated truth of your experience. The voice sounds like you. It uses your words, your cadences, your references. But the content, the particular flavor of its fears, its criticisms, its story about who you are and what you deserve, was shaped by forces entirely outside your control, long before you were old enough to question any of it. And here is why that matters more than anything else in this video. Because once you know this, you can actually do something about it. There is a technique in clinical psychology called cognitive diffusion. The entire premise is simple, but it changes everything. The thoughts your mind produces are not facts. They are events. Things that happen in your mental space the way weather happens in the atmosphere. The goal isn't to silence the voice. It isn't to argue with it. It isn't to replace the negative content with positive content. The goal is to create enough distance between you and the voice, to stop automatically treating everything it says as a direct report on reality. You are not your thoughts. You are the space in which thoughts occur. That distinction between the voice and the awareness that hears the voice is one of the oldest ideas in human history and one of the newest frontiers in neuroscience. What meditation researchers call the witness, what psychologists call metacognitive awareness, the ability to hear the voice say you are not good enough, and recognize that as a pattern, a habit, a weather event, rather than a truth. You are not the voice. You never were. You are the one who has always been listening. And that listener, the part of you that just watched this entire video, noticing the voice that was almost certainly commenting on it the whole time, has always had more power over the story than the voice ever told you. And here is the thing that makes all of this bigger than just you. Every person you have ever met is walking around with a voice in their head. A voice that was shaped by people and experiences they didn't choose, running patterns they didn't design, telling a story about who they are that may have been written before they were old enough to hold a pen. The person who hurt you, the person you can't understand, the person whose certainty baffles you. They are not hearing the world. They are hearing their voice's version of it, just like you have been hearing yours. There is a voice in your head right now. You noticed it at the very beginning of this video, and you've been aware of it on and off ever since. That moment of noticing, that tiny gap between the voice and the awareness of the voice, is not a small thing. It might be the most important thing, because that gap is where you actually live, not in the voice, not in the noise, in the silence between the words, where you were always free. Go beyond theory.